Hey, and welcome back to this week's edition of This Woman Can. I am your host, Janice Sutherland, career strategist for the mature Black woman. And I'm also a passionate believer that job reinvention isn't just possible, it's absolutely powerful. So if you've been side-eyeing your job, especially in the current climate, dreaming of something more liberated, purposeful, or peaceful, then you're going to love the next few weeks, because I'll be having a special mini series, Permission to Reinvent. Now, last year, I had the honor of supporting the Job Liberation Summit for Black women, hosted by the incredible Dr. Kimani Norrington. And after the event, something really powerful happened that she shared with me. She was flooded with messages from women over 50 saying, "Where is the space for us? I want to reinvent, but where do I begin? Is it too learn to start? Is it too late to start something new? And I'm feeling really scared." And I thought, well, all right then, let's have that conversation and let's start that space. And you've probably seen that happening over the past few months within the This Woman Can community. So I wanted to have a special series dedicated to creating that space for you. Permission to Reinvent is going to be 7 episodes of real talk and a few gentle pushes to remind you that your second act can be just as powerful, bold, joyful, and entirely on your terms. I'm living testimony. And if you're loving what you hear, I've also got something special coming up, because my signature program, 50 Forward Fearless Future, kicks off a brand new cohort in June. It's made for women just like you, ready to break out of the box, rediscover their purpose, and start designing a life that really, really fits with them and where they are at this point in time. So you want to find out more about that, there's a link in the show notes, or you can visit my website, www.janicesutherland.com. So stay with me, listen, laugh, reflect, take notes. We've got more going on in this week's episode. And maybe, just maybe, you'll say yes to yourself in a brand new way. Because, as I said, I know what it feels like to be in your position, because I was there. A few years ago, I was feeling stuck. I didn't know what direction to go to. I was successful. I had all the trappings, the car, the house, the salary, the title, but I was totally uninspired. And for a while, I really bought into the myth that you can't start over now. You're too old. Be grateful. Settle yourself. Play it safe. Wait it out to retirement. But I stopped buying into that and realized that starting over doesn't have to feel scary. It's not scary. It felt like freedom. So I pivoted, launched my coaching business, and built a life that actually reflects who I am and fits me. So, and I'm not special. I'm really not special. I'm just like you. So if I can do it, you can do it. I just got tired of settling. So I want you to know that you're not starting from scratch. You are starting from experience. You know what drains you. You know what lights you up. And now you have the freedom to actually choose differently, to do something different, be it a career, a new business, or just finding a better way, more joyful way of living. And so before we kick into this week's interview, I just want to leave you with 3 questions that you can reflect on that will help you looking about how you can start making that move, how you can start looking at things differently for your future. So the first thing is, what am I tolerating that's draining me? That's the first question. Second is, when do I feel most alive? And lastly, if fear wasn't a factor, what would I try? No pressure, absolutely no pressure to have all the answers today. Just get honest and where you want your next chapter to be. So that's it. So now on to this week's interview. So today I am delighted to be joined by a previous guest, the phenomenal Dr. Kimani Norrington, co-creator of the 2025 Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women. Yep, you heard that right, job liberation. Not just career change, but really a bold reimagining of what work, wellness, and worth can look like to us as Black women. So we're going to talk about maybe more about the summit, burnout, designing careers that fit our lives, and how this summit is creating a movement, not just a moment. But before we dive in, just a heads up that I'll be live hosting. I'll be hosting a live masterclass at the event called Pivot with Power, reinventing your career after 50 and doing it your way. So if you're over 50 and thinking, okay, what's next for me? Make sure you stay tuned for details at the end of this episode. So grab your coffee, your journal, or your walking shoes because Dr. Kimani's in the building. So, Dr. Kimani, welcome back to This Woman Can.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. I'm
No,
excited to
it's
talk
great.
with you again.
Yes, great to have you. So, for the uninitiated, the phrase the job liberation is powerful. What is it all about?
Good question. So, job liberation is powerful because it really allows for Black women to take a moment to reflect on the role that work plays
Yeah,
in our lives. And many times our work becomes our identity. So, it's really an opportunity to really reflect on what role does work play in my life? And am I satisfied with
yeah,
how my work is playing out in my life? Many times we're not because of
yeah,
negative experiences that we're having in the workplace and allowing ourselves the freedom to say, you know what, if this is not working for me, what are my other options? So, really liberating ourselves from the mentality that we
yeah,
are our jobs, because that's not true, and liberating ourselves from the notion that we have to get that good job with the good benefits and stay there
yeah,
regardless. We just have to stay
yeah,
there no matter what type of abuse or trauma that we're experiencing in the workplace. So liberating ourselves from that belief and
yeah,
leaning into, okay, if this is not the life that I want, how do I create the life that I want and still be able to pay my bills? How do I
yeah,
find other ways, right? Liberating our mindset that there's other ways for us to make money
yeah,
besides being at a job that either is toxic, we've
yeah,
outgrown, or
yeah,
if you maybe been laid off unexpectedly. There's other ways for us as Black women to make money, to make multiple streams of income, find other ways to replace, our health insurance and our retirement so we can live the life that we really deserve.
yeah, yeah. Great answer. And I think since the last time we spoke, so much has changed. So, why is this conversation so urgent for Black women in 2025?
It's so urgent because of what's going on in the world right now, particularly if you're in the US,
Yeah.
or anywhere associated with the US. There's
Mm,
so much chaos and confusion right now. And I think many of us are in fear mode and we're thinking about survival. So
yeah.
the normal reaction for many of us when we get fearful is that we try to stay put. We try to stay
Yeah.
put and we try
Yeah.
to stay put with what we think is stable. But I think what we're seeing right now is nothing stable. Nothing is
Mm,
stable right now. And it's important for us as Black women to prioritize ourselves, and
yeah.
prioritizing ourselves means having backup plans. So
Yeah.
even if you want to stick it out at that job, okay, I invite you
Mm,
to think about
yeah.
that. But even
Yeah.
if you want to stick it out, it's important for us to have backup plans and to always have exit plans ready
Mm,
for us,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
the anti-HR lady talks about all the time. Even if you have a job, you need to have your exit plans. And so the summit really provides Black women with the resources and the how to you
Yeah.
pivot if you need
Yes.
to, because
Yeah.
things can poof in a day, it's gone.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we don't want to be reliant only on one stream of income from one job. So it's really liberating ourselves to say, okay, I see what's happening in the world. I really need to get
Mm,
myself together so that I know about all my options, plan A, B, C, and D, and have them
yeah.
together.
Yeah. 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 And what inspired you to create this summit? Because how long has it been going now? It's the
This is the
third,
second
second,
year. This is the second
second
year.
year.
Yes.
So for those who haven't heard about before, it's still new, still fledgling in essence. What inspired you to create this summit?
Okay. Well, actually, the summit was Marissa Price's idea. So Marissa
Okay.
Price and I are co-hosting the event
Yeah.
together, and it was actually her idea. But to take a step back, when I started my YouTube channel, I was still in a very toxic job. I was on a leave of absence from a
Mm,
very toxic job, and part of my healing was to talk about it on YouTube because this stuff was happening to me, and I knew they were trying to humiliate me and
yeah.
silence me. So
Yeah.
part of my healing was I refused to be silenced. And now I'm going to
Mm,
liberate myself by talking about it, but I'm also going to liberate other Black women in the process. So that was
yeah.
about 2.5 years ago, and I was still at the toxic job. And then
Yeah.
when I resigned, I just kept talking on YouTube because so many Black women from around the world started reaching
Yeah.
out to me and said,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, thank you for talking about this. I thought I was the only one." And so now I interview Black women every week on my YouTube channel, Lifting As We Climb
Yeah.
Consulting Wellness Services, about the healing journey from a toxic job
Mm.
because I want Black women to know we're not alone. Okay, it's very
Mm.
common, and that we have agency, we have choice, we're able to live a different life,
Yeah.
even if our parents or other people tell us, "Girl, say that, no, don't do that, don't do that."
Yeah.
We're the only one living our lives, so we have to
Yeah.
prioritize ourselves. So from my YouTube videos, Marissa would watch my videos. And so she mentioned at a certain point that she was a VA. I needed a VA. I reached out to her. Then we started working together. She was my VA. And then
Wow.
I love to support other Black women in their growth too. And Marissa
Yeah.
started talking about other ideas she had. And so one of the ideas was a summit. So then we came together and we started working together in that capacity. She's not my VA anymore, but now she's more my partner,
Yeah.
right, in
Yeah.
terms of the summit. And so, being able to work with another Black woman who is also a toxic job survivor and
Mm.
help to liberate other Black women in similar
Yeah.
situations. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's not just a moment, it's a movement. It really
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
movement right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, I think we've touched on some of the kinds of liberation we're talking about here:
Yes.
financial, emotional, professional. But since we've spoken, I've had another year. So I'm now in a new decade. I'm 60. So,
Okay.
so I'm in a whole new decade. So how
Yes.
do these, and in your experience and the women you work with, Dr. Kimani,
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
do these show up differently for Black women in their 40s, 50s,
Mm.
maybe their 60s?
Yes, yes, good question. So the older we get as Black women, we start believing that we really have to stay at that job, right? Like we're getting older. I'm gonna try to stick it out until I retire. I'm gonna try to stick it out till my child graduates from high school or college.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the older we get, that's something I hear more and more and more, and
yeah,
that keeps us there. Or we'll start believing there's no other place I can go to make
yeah,
money because I'm too old,
yeah, yeah,
right? I vested too much into this company. I have earned this position. I've earned this
mm,
income, not
yeah,
realizing that, yeah, you may have,
yeah,
but there's a cost. There's a huge
yes,
cost
yeah,
that's involved with you staying at these jobs. So
mm,
keeping that in mind, but I hear that 40s, 50s, 60s, that's the mentality that I'm hearing. Like, I can't go. I'm gonna try
yeah,
to stick it out, right? Even though you're like you're barely making it. You're barely making it day to day. And you're thinking that if I could just make it to retirement, I'll be
yeah,
okay. What we don't
yeah,
recognize is that because of all the stress, you might
yeah,
become so sick that you may
yeah,
not make it to
yeah,
retirement. And or if you
yeah,
do get to retirement, you're so broken down, you can't really enjoy your retirement
yeah.
because think about the quality of your life
Yeah,
too.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I will talk from experience to that cohort because as I said, I'm 60. I left the corporate world in my early 50s, feeling like you said, what was I going to do?
Yeah.
It was compounded living on a small island where roles were very few and far between. So I had to tough it out. I had to make the decision. I had the burnout experience. I had the breaking down in tears in front of my colleagues. I can't go on anymore. Where a
Mm.
spreadsheet, look at a spreadsheet made me feel sick,
Ooh,
all
ooh.
that. So, if for those of you listening, there can be so much wealth of information that's going to be at this summit.
Mhm.
Me include, I'll be sharing my experience and what I do and how I work specifically with women over 50 because it is a slightly different nuance. For those
Mhm.
of us who, well, when long ago when I was in my 40s, our thought process are different because we kind of think like you said, we don't have options when
Right.
actually the opposite it's the total opposite.
Exactly.
Total
Exactly.
opposite. So flicking back to the summit, you have gathered some powerful voices for this summit. So
Mhm.
can you share a few of the speakers or the
Sure.
sessions that we don't want to miss?
Yes, well, all of them are outstanding. Okay, so it's 15. I think we have 15 Black women who are confirmed speakers. The first
Fantastic.
day is more of like kind of setting the tone and grounding because
Hmm.
as Black women, we're so busy. We're juggling all these things. I
Yeah,
need for us to be grounded, right? So just sit with ourselves and give ourselves permission to sit and
yeah,
rest for a moment. Because we're
yeah,
going to start with the grounding that Friday. And then the Saturday and Sunday, these are all day. They are recorded.
Mhm.
So you can kind of jump in, jump out. So don't feel like, oh my God, I don't have those full days available. You're
Yeah.
able to come back and look at them. But we're kicking off with Stephanie Perry talking about job detox. So
Hmm.
ways again, how do we disentangle our identity from our jobs? Because
Yeah.
again, our jobs don't define who we are. It's what we do to
Yeah.
make money. Okay. Then we also have Rashida Dow. So we're talking about not only the practical how
Mm.
to mentally prepare myself to leave a job, but
Yeah.
what are the practical steps that I can do to pivot and do well, right? So that might mean taking a sabbatical. What does that
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
Rashida Dow is going to be talking about taking a sabbatical. We're going to
Mm.
have other Black women talking about creating multiple streams of income. What does it mean to have a side hustle? How do you create a side
Mm.
hustle? How do you monetize your talents? So Janice, you talked about this. As Black women, we get in this fear mentality of, oh my God, I can't leave. I won't be able to find another job. If you were able to get that job, what makes you think that you can't get another job? You can't create another
Exactly.
business. You can't do all those other things.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
as Black women, we have to be on top of our game to get any
Mm.
of these jobs in the first place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do we learn how to monetize our gifts and talents? So
Yeah.
that's be Kim with the gems is going to be talking about that. Also talking about when you're in the workplace and you might be experiencing some issues of hostile, discriminatory
Yeah.
behavior, right?
Microaggressions and everything. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, right? How do you identify that and how do you position yourself so you can
Mm.
lead with the coins? So that's Amory
Mm.
Archer, the
Mm.
anti-HR lady, talking about that. And also, how do we vision the life that we have for ourselves? Like, we're so in survival mode, we can't even envision what is the
Yeah.
life that I want for myself. So if you can't even envision that, how do you know where to go to? If you can't
Yeah.
connect to that vision and that dream, so we have Glenn Mazzini talking about our vision. We have Alicia Bernice coming back talking about our dreams. And it's so many different, it's so many different sessions. I'm not going to go
Yeah.
into all of them, but
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
also have the bonus sessions. So you're one of the bonus
Hmm.
sessions. Talk to Black women over the age of 50. We also have Dr. Roche Brown, who's a Black woman financial psychologist, the same one that I work with to get
Yeah.
my financial exit plan together. So how
Yeah.
do you get that financial exit plan together? If the finances is really what's keeping you there, because you have fear
Yes.
about what am I going to
Yeah.
do, right? So
Yeah.
we're going to cover that. And then we're also going to have so you and then Jackie Abram is going to talk to Black women who are still in the workplace and they're trying to figure out how do I make it day to day? Okay,
Yes.
I can't
Yeah. That
just
was
up and
one of
leave.
my questions. That's
Yeah, I
great.
can't just up and
Yeah.
leave, but
Yeah.
what am I going to do to just survive
Yeah. Yeah.
as I'm getting this exit plan together?
Yeah.
So we're going to
Yeah.
talk about all those things while also talking about ways to protect our mental health. I'm going to be
Mm.
leading an Afro Flow yoga session.
Mm.
So for us to kind of move our bodies because
Yeah.
healing is not only the mindset, but
And
it's also
yes.
moving our bodies too.
Yeah.
And so how do we connect to movement? So all that. And again, it's recorded. And I want to mention that as a privacy consideration, none of the attendees will be seen on camera. Their names
Fantastic.
won't be listed. If they have questions or comments, they can kind of change their name in a
Yeah.
platform so they
Yeah.
won't be kind of outed. Because a lot of Black women feel uncomfortable. I don't want people in my
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
I don't want
Yeah.
people to know I'm trying to leave. So we've thought about all the things that might keep a Black woman in a toxic job. And we're
Yeah.
very intentional too. This is not only for Black women in toxic jobs. This is if you've outgrown a job. This is if you've
Yeah.
been laid off from a job, particularly Black women in
Yeah.
America, federal workers who've been
Yes. Yeah.
laid off. This is for all Black women,
Yeah.
no matter where you are with your education, your profession, anything. This is literally for all Black women.
Fantastic. So it's a really filled, packed. There is literally something for everyone, is what I'm
Yes,
hearing, because you
yes.
preempted some of my questions that I was going to ask. So it definitely means there's something for everyone. So, Dr. Kimani, thinking back to the last summit, 2024,
Mhm.
can you share a story or a testimony that really stayed with you from the summit?
Yeah, well, first, the actual summit is magical. So
Yeah.
you have all these Black women coming together. So last year we had 300 Black women in attendance, and just to see like the chat, right? So as people were
Yeah.
talking,
Yeah.
me too, me too, me too, me too. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
They said this is the best thing they've ever gone to, the best summit they've ever gone to. asking when is it going to come back? We need to have this every year. Some people are like, you're undercharging, right? You need to be charging more for this. But really saying this has been a transformational event for them because many of the Black women who came to the summit last year came in feeling very broken, very defeated, feeling like
Yeah.
there was nothing they could do. But they knew, they were like, you know what? There has to be another way. That's why they signed up for the summit.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
left feeling like, I got this.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah.
Black women actually writing back after the summit saying, oh my God, my life has drastically changed
Yeah.
since I came to the summit.
Yeah.
I'm now in a different
Yeah.
job. I've
Yeah.
now created my own business. There's so many different options for us. And to be able to hear that and to know
Mm.
again, Janice, like you said, like we are part of a movement.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
a movement for Black women that we don't have to live the way our mothers and our grandmothers
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
There's a different way for us, but we
Yeah.
also have to be open to looking at what the resources are available to us. And the
Mm.
summit is one of those resources.
Mm. And I love that because so many, like yourself, you probably like yourself. I have so many women I call walk around the me, myself, and I attitude because they don't believe anybody else is experiencing what they're going through. So they feel in
Yeah.
isolation. So I
Yeah.
think this is a fantastic platform for you to realize, look, in the nicest possible way, you're not that special because somebody else is experiencing what you're experiencing. And there's power.
True.
There's power in some familiarity. There's power in knowing,
Mhm.
well, I'm not crazy thinking
Mhm.
or feeling the way I do, which
And
is
being able
why I
to
think it's
name
all,
it, be able to
yeah,
name like what's happening. This is
yes,
workplace trauma. This is,
yes,
this is not the life that I want for myself. This is not what
yeah.
I worked so hard
Yeah,
for. Yes,
yeah, yeah. And it's very powerful speaking with someone when you're sharing your experiences and not being given the side eye thinking, really? Because even if it hasn't happened to us, we know it's the potential's there. It has happened to others. It's not an
absolutely.
unusual thing for us to have. So that's what I think makes the job liberation summit so liberating in the
Yes,
fact that we can be free, talk freely about our experiences without
yes,
getting that side eye, without being told, is that real? Without being, almost othered because come on, it doesn't really happen like that. We've heard
exactly,
all those phrases.
exactly.
We
Or it keeps happening from job to job, job. So you must be the problem,
yeah,
right?
exactly,
Well,
exactly.
racism and sexism is the
Yeah,
problem because it's in all of our systems.
yeah.
Yes.
And I'm going to add ageism as well now. So the
That
three
part, yes,
isms.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, 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 yes,
Fantastic.
yes.
So, Dr. Kimani, what's one belief or mindset shift that every Black woman needs to embrace if she wants more freedom in her career, do you believe?
Well, I'm just thinking about your motto, this woman can. So knowing as Black women, we can, and we have always we've
Yes.
always pivoted as Black
Yeah.
women. We
Yeah.
have always found a way to pivot. And so when we are in situations
Yeah.
that are harming us, number one, we need to pause and say, this is harming me. And
Mm.
not to get so stuck in that mentality of, I'm a strong Black woman, I'm gonna thug it
Yes.
out. These people are not
Yeah.
gonna run me out of here, right?
Yeah.
We have to say, wait a minute, this is harming me. And we have to look at what are the costs of me staying at that job. Now, you might think that I'm getting this good paycheck, the golden handcuffs, but what are the costs of you staying? Do the
Yeah.
costs of you
Yeah.
staying outweigh the cost of you leaving? And if you're thinking about leaving, if you're open to that, be open to looking at what are the resources that will help me
Mhm.
successfully leave. Okay. So
Mhm.
Marissa and I are not trying to gaslight Black women and say, oh, girl, just up and leave. No,
Yeah.
we're saying to Black women is you are able to leave and pivot and be successful,
Mhm.
but you also need to have your plans in place. We
Yeah.
don't want anybody jumping out and just doing,
Yeah.
stuff like on a whim. Okay. And I
Yeah.
never tell Black women just up and leave a job
Mm.
unless you're experiencing immediate harm, physically
Yeah.
and or psychologically. Okay.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
also acknowledge that right now, during this time of chaos and confusion, that fear is probably even heightened
Oh,
right
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
again, I just want to emphasize for Black women that we can pivot, we can, and
Mm.
we can do it
Mm.
well, but we
Yeah.
also need to be prepared and get those resources and learn from
Mm.
other Black women who have
Mm.
done it, who've
Mm.
all pivoted and
Yeah.
pivot well.
Yeah. And I think we all, just to add to that, I think we also, you talked about the, what we're leaving behind or what we're leaving on. What's the opportunity that's ahead of me? There's a whole mindset
True,
change.
true.
What is possible? What could be
Yes,
different if I
yes,
if I allowed myself to think that it's doable, because
yes,
we tell ourselves so many times we're on the fear why we can't, but
yes.
what if we can? And
True,
what's the
true.
opportunity? What are we leaving behind by not pursuing
Yes,
that opportunity? So yeah,
yes,
I'm going to come off my
yes,
soapbox because I'm so
yes.
hot about this.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And then for those of us who are spiritual,
Yeah.
I invite us to think about, would God want us to live a life where we're suffering?
Mm.
Think about our ancestors. Would our ancestors want to live a life where they
Yeah.
sacrifice for us? Would they
Yeah.
want us to be
Yeah.
suffering right now? Or would they want us to reflect on all that they paved the way for us and that we have
Mm,
agency now in a way they did not? We have
mm,
agency. So let us follow up on the freedoms that we have and
yeah.
create a different life for ourselves. And I know there's going to be some black women watching this right now and be like, well, that must be nice for you because you're brave or you're whatever, right? Or whatever. Or you might, because you have the. I just want to say to you, and this is my own testimony, that I was terrified of leaving that toxic job. Even though I had all the credentials and all the kind of stuff before I even came to the job, I
Mm,
was terrified because I was like, how am I going to make money? What am I
yeah.
going to do? Right.
Yeah.
But once I was able to, number one, talk to my Black woman therapist
Yeah.
and really reflect on this is not serving me anymore. I need to be truthful to myself. I need to stop lying to myself. But
Mm,
once I was like, okay, I need to leave, right? So before I'm fighting, like I'm going to fight these people.
mm,
But once I opened my hands and said, God, I release, I surrender
yeah.
to you. You let me know what direction you want me to go in. Janice, so many
Yes.
opportunities start coming my way, right? That I never could have envisioned. I never could have envisioned having multiple streams of income. But I
Yeah.
stress this right now, especially for Black women, we need to have multiple streams of income.
Fantastic, fantastic. And like I said, you keep preempting my question, so I know we're on the right track if we're thinking the same. So let me close off then, Dr. Kamani, with how does my listeners, the viewers, get to find out more? How do they get to register? How do they get to sign up? And how do we get to meet them, even if anonymously, during the summit?
Yes. So again, the second annual Job Liberation Virtual Summit is May 16th through the 18th. So Janice has a link that she will be sharing with you guys about registration. As a reminder, it is recorded. So if you're not able to go to all the days, it's recorded. Okay. Also, as a privacy consideration, your name will not be seen on camera. Your face won't be seen on camera. Only the summit speakers will be on camera. There's different tiers of tickets. So there's the regular entry,
Mhm.
and you come in, you're able to access the recording for a certain amount of time, but like I think it's like 3 days, and then you have the premium ticket where you're able to have the recordings for a year. And then you're able
Fantastic.
to access the bonus session. So Janice has one of the bonus sessions, Dr. O'Shea Brown talking about getting your financial exit plan together, and then Jackie Abram talking about ways to really find ways to manage and cope in that environment as you're getting your exit plan together. So that's the highest tier of ticket. So again, click the link and you're in. You're in. It's easy
Fantastic.
as that.
Fantastic. So that was my final question. And I love, love, love where we're going with this or where you're going with this. I love being part of it. So, Dr. Kimani, I just want to say thank you for being my guest this week on This Woman Can.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you.
Phew, and I told you that conversation was going to be special. It was going to be lit. It was going to be everything that we needed today. So I'll give a huge shout out and thank you to Dr. Kimani Norrington for not just sharing the vision of the Job Liberation Summit for Black women, but also reminding us that we are allowed to want more freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment. We can have all of it and we can want all of it. And for those of you thinking that Dr. Kamani's name sounded familiar, she was a previous guest of mine in early 2024, where she shared her own experiences of leaving a toxic job. So she speaks from experience when she's co hosting the summit. I'll leave a link in the show notes if you want to go back and hear her story, because believe me, it's one you definitely want to listen to. And if today's episode sparks something in you, maybe a little nudge, maybe a little what if I did something different, don't forget you can participate in my Pivot with Power Masterclass exclusively at the Job Liberation Summit for Black women. It's designed specifically for Black women over 50 who are really ready to make that career move, whether that's switching industries, changing careers, starting something new, or finally putting you first. It's that simple. Details are in the show notes, so go ahead and save your seat. So until next time, I want you to remember this. You're not too old, it's not too late. And if I can, you can, this woman can. Take care until next time.